Okay, thank you very much, Tricia, for the introduction and for inviting me here. I must say I've just come straight out of a whole morning, early afternoon of doing interviews. So it's kind of quite proper and fitting that I talk about skills and critical skills. We're looking for them. I work at the University of Fort Hare. I started there last year. I moved from there, I moved there from the University of Cape Town, February 2017. And part of what I'm going to say is it kind of weaves into my own biography and Fort Hare and all of these other interesting things. The first thing is just to talk about Fort Hare. Some people know about it, some people have some idea, and other people have more detailed kind of sense of who we are. Fort Hare has been in the business of producing skills for the last 101 years now. This year, 102 years this year, 102 years. So we've been in this game. We've been producing skills for the country, we've been producing skills for Africa, and we've been indeed producing skills for the rest of the continent. And I can take up a lot of time just dropping names about who's an alumnus of the university. They are from the most kind of renowned and celebrated to very kind of low-key members of our society. They've walked through the corridors of that great university. And they became great, sometimes despite the university itself, despite those who ran the university in the distant past. So I just want to make that very important. You may then want to ask, where are these people? Who are these people? Okay, and the 5 presidents that we've produced, does not need any restating here. But go to any parastatal or state-owned company in South Africa today, and you're very likely to stumble on an alumnus of the University of Fort Hare. Go to any private company, CEO, general managers, and the various kind of divisional heads of these companies. You're likely to find an alumnus of our university. Go into academia, you're likely to find someone who did their first degree at the University of Fort Hare. Go into fields such as medicine, engineering, and various other fields. So we are everywhere. And many people have moved from Fort Hare to acquire further studies in other universities in the country, but also outside the country. So we're very proud of that history. And which then brings me to talking a little bit about Fort Hare and the critical skills issue. But before I do, I just want to say also that the university has, and this is probably was one of the attractions for me, that despite decades of underfunding and under-resourcing, it's sometimes at times deliberate, the university has been extremely resilient. It has stood the test of time. It has gone through very, very difficult and testing times. And when it was announced that I was going there, a lot of people who know me ask me the question. They say, "Are you crazy? Where do you think you're going?" Almost implying that Fort Hare was a sinking ship. And I'm here to say it's not a sinking ship at all. It's a ship on the rise, or rather it's a ship that's about to take off in many directions. Let me just look at 4 areas, and I can go the full spectrum talking about critical skills, but I'm going to talk about those areas where we have a footprint as University of Fort Hare. The first one is accounting. Accounting. Now picture this. In 2016, Fort Hare came first in terms of the pass rate in the board exams. First, out of all 25 other universities, or 26 universities, we came out first with 93% pass rate. We were right up there above the big and mighty. 2017, we slumped a little bit with a 75% pass rate. 2018, this year, once again, we pushed right up to the top at number 5 with 89% of the pass rate. So once again, we're right there. we're producing accountants. But what is remarkable about this, and this is very, very important, we don't always get your 7 distinction, 5 distinction students. We get the bulk of our students from the province and from the rest of the country. Some of them kind of barely managing, but we turn them into stars. And the accounting, for me, is a very kind of, very remarkable, and it's a story, a good story to tell for us. And I like to always tell that story. The second area, again, another very important area of skills for the country, and I suppose for the continent. We have a specialization in meat science. And you may ask, so meat science, so what's the big deal? But actually, our university, jointly with the University of Stellenbosch, we're right at the cutting edge, not just of meat science, but also of listeriosis. We are right there. So our researchers, while we kind of dumping our polonies and our bacon and all of these other products from that company, our researchers are right there at the cutting edge doing this. And again, that's research, and those are skills not just for the country. Those are the skills that the continent can do with quite a lot. So that's the second area. The third area, again, it's one area which you don't get to hear about on a daily basis. It's called Geographic Information Systems and Remote Sensing. Basically, it's got to do with research and teaching on matters of space. And we're linked to the national SKA project of the Department of Science and Technology, and we're part of a larger project called the Africa Space University. Basically, it's a group of universities in South Africa and the rest of the continent that are active in that space. It's something that's unknown to many people. We're working very closely with the National Space Agency. We produce graduates, and our graduates are highly sought after from that. And indeed, we also attract members of the Space Agency to come and teach at our university. So that's a third area. And I'm going to, fourth area, before I kind of rattle a long list of it. The fourth area, which builds on our current strength. For decades and decades, the University of Hare has had a faculty of agriculture. If you drive through Alice, it's kind of a small, unremarkable town. But you drive through there, you'll see on the left a flock of what is a herd of cows. There's a huge dairy, 900 cows. It's called the Fort Hare Dairy Project. We're not the sole owners of it, but we are in partnership there. But that's not the story I want to tell, and that's not the skill I want to talk about. The skill I want to talk about, which is sorely needed not only in the country but across the continent, is veterinary science. We now at a very advanced stage of talking to Minister Naledi Pandor and the department about establishing a veterinary science school or faculty, building again on our track record in agriculture. So that's one area in a province. I should say this, in a province with the largest numbers of production animals, cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, and so on. And largest in the country is in the Eastern Cape. So we're very well placed, not only for producing skills for the Eastern Cape, but for the country and for the continent. Vet skills are highly sought after. They're extremely scarce. And if you want to be anything in terms of food security, in food production, quality food production, for export and for local consumption, vet science is absolutely necessary and key. So we feel very proud about this. Now, before I end, because I do know that other people are going to come in here, I just need to say that in terms of the skills, I'm always worried about the separation between universities and other providers, and between universities and also the private sector and other organizations. There's always a divide. University is seen as, the ivory tower. You're getting all this theory, but we need skills, practical skills. The fact of the matter is there is a loop, and that's what is important, and then that's how we see it, that you're part of a loop. So in that process, for that reason, we have a lot of existing partnerships with organizations outside, with CETAs. A lot of the CETAs, we have partnerships with them to train students in particular areas. We have partnerships with financial services companies. I'm not going to mention them here. They also provide rather bursaries for our students. Auto manufacturers, you'll recall that we now have a second big campus in East London. And across the Buffalo River, across the East London Harbour, where Mercedes-Benz produces and exports cars. So we have a partnership with Mercedes-Benz, we have a partnership with Toyota and so on. We have a partnerships with the Science Councils, Agricultural Research Council, the NRF, CSIR, and so on. We have a partnership, very active partnership with AMSCO. And of course, we have the departments of Science and Technology, Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Arts and Culture. And finally, and again, as I say, I don't want to bore you with a long kind of speech about what other nice things we do, but we occupy a corridor. We're part of a corridor of education that spans almost 2 centuries. Across the Hume River from where we are is Lovedale College, which was established in the 1840s. Then another 20 kilometers down the way is, of course, Hilltown, which also for more than a century has been producing skills for the country. And so we're very proud of that. And as I say, what attracted me to Fort Hare was the resilience and the potential and the future of the university. Thank you very much.